Melissa Carter hadn't planned on leaving home that weekend. Life had been a blur of routines, school runs, work meetings, cold dinners, and silent nights. Her husband, Tom, had become a stranger who lived under the same roof. He was always busy, always distracted, and always miles away, even when he sat beside her. The warmth that once filled their home had slowly faded into polite conversations and tired sighs. So when the idea of a short trip popped into her mind, she didn't think twice. Maybe a few days by the ocean would clear her head. Maybe it would remind her who she was before everything started to fall apart. She packed light, just a few clothes for her and her 10-year-old son. Ethan, the boy, was cheerful, thoughtful, and observant in ways that often surprised her. He didn't talk much about what he noticed, but Melissa always felt his eyes understood more than his words said. On Friday morning, they got into her old gray SUV and drove toward the coast of Maine. The road was quiet, lined with trees painted in autumn colors. Ethan sat in the back drawing something in his notebook. "What are you sketching?" Melissa asked, glancing at him through the rearview mirror. He shrugged. "A happy family." Her chest tightened at the words. "That's nice," she managed to say softly, forcing a small smile. She didn't want him to see the ache behind it. The drive was long, but the moment they reached the seaside town, Melissa felt the tension ease slightly. The air smelled of salt and pine, and the ocean stretched endlessly before them, calm and blue. Their hotel was a small, charming place on a quiet street near the water. It had white wooden walls and old-fashioned lanterns that glowed warmly at night. The woman at the front desk greeted them kindly, and soon they were walking into their room, a cozy space with 2 beds, soft yellow curtains, and a large mirror across from the window. Melissa looked around and breathed out a quiet sigh. "Perfect," she said. Ethan jumped on the bed, laughing as if the world was light again. For a moment, she felt it too. After settling in, Melissa suggested they explore the beach. Ethan ran ahead, kicking sand into the wind, his laughter carried by the waves. Melissa walked slowly, her shoes in one hand, her thoughts heavy. She watched the horizon where the sea met the sky, thinking about how simple things used to be, how she and Tom once dreamed together. But dreams, like tides, change direction. Somewhere along the way, they had both stopped trying. That evening, they returned to the hotel, tired but peaceful. They ordered dinner from the small restaurant downstairs, grilled cheese for Ethan, salad for her. As they ate, Ethan looked thoughtful. "Mom," he said suddenly, "do you think people stop loving each other?" The question came so suddenly that Melissa almost dropped her fork. "Why would you ask that?" she said carefully. "I don't know," he replied. "Sometimes Dad sounds angry even when he's not saying anything." Melissa froze. She wanted to protect him from everything, from the arguments, from the silences, from the truth. But Ethan was smart. She forced a calm tone. "Sometimes grown-ups forget how to talk. That's all." He nodded, not fully convinced. After dinner, they got ready for bed. The room grew quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Melissa stood by the window, looking at the ocean lights reflecting on the dark waves. Ethan was lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, his small hands folded on his chest. "Do you like it here?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, it feels ... safe." Melissa turned to look at him, her heart softening. "Good," she said. "That's all I wanted." When she switched off the main light and turned on the lamp, the mirror caught her attention. It reflected the entire room, the beds, the window, the night sky. Ethan's eyes followed her gaze. "Mom," he said quietly, "the mirror looks strange." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He sat up slightly. "It feels like someone's watching us through it." Melissa chuckled nervously, trying to ease the mood. "That's just the reflection, honey. It's an old mirror." But Ethan didn't laugh. He kept staring, his expression serious in the soft lamplight. "No, Mom," he said, his voice calm but certain. "There's something there. It's not scary. It's just ... different." A shiver ran down her spine, though she didn't know why. "You're probably tired. Let's get some sleep." Ethan nodded slowly and lay back down. Within minutes, his breathing softened into sleep. Melissa, however, couldn't look away from the mirror. It seemed ordinary enough, just a tall rectangle framed in dark wood, but in the quiet of the room it felt heavy, as if it held a story she didn't know. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back at her seemed unfamiliar. Her eyes looked older, her posture tired, her smile gone. She remembered being full of life once, painting, laughing, dancing, barefoot in the kitchen. But now, her reflection only showed a woman who had been holding everything together for too long. Melissa whispered to herself, "When did I lose me?" Her voice echoed softly in the stillness. She turned off the lamp and climbed into bed, but sleep didn't come easily. Her mind was filled with fragments of Tom's distant voice, Ethan's words, the mirror's silent stare. The sound of waves outside became her lullaby, slow and steady. Some time past midnight. She awoke to a faint sound, a whisper. Maybe the wind, maybe something else. She looked toward Ethan's bed. He was asleep, peaceful, but his small face was turned toward the mirror again. Melissa quietly got up, pulled the curtain to block the moonlight reflecting on the glass, and returned to bed. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror wasn't just reflecting what was there. It was showing something she hadn't wanted to face. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, painting golden streaks on the floor. Ethan was sitting up already, sketchbook in hand. "Morning, Mom," he said cheerfully. "What are you drawing now?" she asked, stretching. He smiled and turned the page around. It was a drawing of their hotel room with the mirror in the center. In the reflection, two figures stood. One was her smiling. The other, faint and faded, looked like a man. Melissa's throat tightened. "Who's that?" she asked carefully. Ethan shrugged. "I don't know. I just saw him." She blinked, unsure whether to laugh or worry. But before she could ask more, Ethan closed the book and said, "Can we go to the beach again?" Melissa nodded, but her heart was uneasy. Maybe it was just a child's imagination. Maybe it was nothing. Yet something about the mirror and the strange calmness in Ethan's eyes made her feel as if the weekend that wasn't supposed to happen had just begun to change everything. She didn't know it yet, but that mirror would soon show her truths far deeper than Reflection's truths about love, loss, and the woman she had forgotten to be. That night, after the strange moment with Ethan in the mirror, Melissa couldn't rest. The sound of the ocean waves outside the hotel was calm, but her thoughts were not. She sat by the window, watching the dark sky stretch endlessly over the sea. The reflection in the glass showed her tired Faisal woman who had forgotten how to feel alive. She turned to look at the mirror again. It stood tall in the corner, catching faint light from the hallway through the crack under the door. For a moment she thought she saw movement, like a shadow passing behind her. But when she looked back, it was gone. She smiled weakly to herself. "I'm just tired," she whispered. Still, something about Ethan's words, "You're not alone in there," stayed in her mind. Children often said odd things, but Ethan's tone had been calm, certain, as if he had seen something he couldn't explain. Melissa finally decided to distract herself by scrolling through her phone. As she looked through old pictures, she stumbled upon one from Kalalja, photo of her and her old friend Liam Roberts. They were laughing, holding ice cream cones, standing in front of a broken fountain. She hadn't seen or spoken to him in more than a decade. A rush of memories came back. How they used to talk for hours about life. How he once told her she deserved someone who looked at her the way she looked at sunsets. Back then, she was already dating Tom. Liam had kept his feelings hidden behind friendship and humor. She had married Tom believing they'd build a life full of laughter and dreams. But that laughter was long gone. On impulse, Melissa searched Liam's name online. To her surprise, his profile appeared same friendly face, now older, more mature. She hesitated for a second, then liked an old post of his. A simple photo of the ocean. It was silly, she thought, but harmless. She didn't expect anything from it. Minutes later, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam Roberts. Liam, Mel. Is that really you? Wow, it's been forever. She felt her chest tighten. She typed back, "Hey Liam, yeah, it's me. I'm at the coast with my son. Just needed a break." They started talking about college memories, where life had taken them, and how fast everything had changed. Liam told her he lived in Boston now, working in design, divorced, but content. He said he often thought of the old days and how she had always been the one who made everything brighter. His words felt kind and familiar, like warmth she hadn't felt in years. They weren't flirting. It wasn't wrong. But it reminded her of something she had lost, something gentle, while Ethan slept. Melissa sat in the glow of the phone screen, smiling softly at their messages. She told Liam about Ethan, about the trip, and how she was trying to find herself again. He replied, "You always had a strong heart, Mel. You just need to remember it's still there." That line stayed with her. She put the phone down and looked back at the mirror. The reflection of herself seemed different, now not happier, but somehow more awake. She whispered, "Maybe I forgot who I was." The next morning, sunlight poured into the room. Melissa woke up to the sound of Ethan giggling. He was drawing again at the small desk beside the window. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she said, smiling. He turned the sketchbook toward her. It was a picture of the beach, the waves, the gulls, and two stick figures holding hands near the water. One was clearly her. "Who's the other one?" she asked gently. Ethan shrugged. "Just someone you were smiling at." Melissa chuckled lightly. "You've got quite an imagination." But her chest felt tight again. Maybe kids saw emotions adults tried to hide. She got dressed, brushed her hair, and they went downstairs for breakfast. The hotel restaurant was small, filled with the smell of coffee and warm pastries. As they ate, her phone buzzed. Another message from Liam. "I hope you're enjoying the ocean. It always clears my head. Maybe it's doing the same for you." She smiled and replied quickly, "It is. Thanks, Liam." Ethan looked up from his pancakes. "Who are you smiling at, Mom?" "Just an old friend," she said simply. He tilted his head. "From before I was born." "Yes," she said, laughing softly. "Way before." They spent the afternoon walking through the small seaside shops. Ethan bought a seashell keychain, and Melissa found a simple silver bracelet. It reminded her of one Liam had once given her as a joke in college, saying, "You deserve something shiny for your kindness." Funny how small things could carry old emotions. Later, when they returned to the hotel, Melissa checked her phone again. Another message from Liam waited. This time it was longer. "I used to think you were the bravest person I knew, Mel. You always believed people could change. I hope you still do. Don't let the world make you forget what makes you ... you." She sat down on the bed, reading the words twice. For some reason, her eyes stung. It wasn't that Liam said anything romantic, he didn't, but his message reached a part of her that had been silent for too long. She looked toward the mirror again. The woman staring back at her looked alive for the first time in years. When Ethan came out of the shower, he noticed her expression. "You look happy, Mom," he said. She smiled softly. "Maybe I am just a little..." That evening, as the sun began to set, Melissa and Ethan went back to the beach. The sky was painted in pink and gold. They built a small sandcastle together, laughing when the waves tried to steal it away. For a brief, beautiful moment, Melissa felt like life had color again. She took out her phone to take a photo. The screen reflected her and Ethan together, smiling. Behind them, in the reflection of her sunglasses, she thought she saw another figure far in the distance, a man standing by the rocks, watching the sunset. It startled her for a second, but when she looked up, there was no one there. Maybe it was just a trick of light, she told herself. Or maybe it didn't matter. That night, back in the room, Ethan fell asleep early. Melissa sat near the window, holding her phone, her heart strangely restless. She typed one last message to Liam before bed. "You said I used to smile differently. Maybe I'm starting to remember why." He replied almost instantly. "Good. That's the Mel I remember." She put down her phone and stood before the mirror once more. The reflection showed her standing alone, but she no longer looked lost. The sadness in her eyes had softened into something else, hope, maybe, or quiet courage. She touched the glass gently and whispered, "Maybe it's time to stop pretending." Behind her, Ethan turned in his sleep and murmured something she couldn't quite hear. For the first time in a long while, Melissa didn't feel afraid of tomorrow. The mirror didn't seem strange anymore. It seemed honest. It didn't show ghosts. It showed truth. And deep inside, Melissa Carter knew that truth was the beginning of everything she had forgotten to believe in. The morning came quietly, sunlight spilling across the hotel room floor like gold. Melissa woke to find Ethan already awake, sitting cross-legged at the edge of his bed, staring at the mirror again. His reflection looked calm, but there was something different in his eyes, something older, wiser than his years. "Good morning, honey," she said, stretching. "You're up early?" He turned to her slowly and said, "Mom, that man from last night. He made you smile." Melissa froze, confused. "What man?" "The one from your phone," Ethan said softly. "The one who texted you? I saw your face in the mirror. You looked happy again." His words hit her like a wave. How could a 10-year-old understand so much? She tried to smile, brushing off the question. "Ethan, grown-ups have friends too, you know." I know," he said, lowering his eyes. "But it's been a long time since you smiled like that." Melissa's chest tightened. She wanted to explain, but how could she tell him that his father's silence had built walls between them? How could she admit that a simple conversation with an old friend had made her feel seen again? She just nodded and said, "Thank you, sweetheart." After breakfast, they went to the beach again. The wind was cooler that day, carrying the smell of salt and driftwood. Ethan ran along the water's edge, chasing waves, while Melissa sat on a rock, watching him. For a moment, she let herself breathe. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Tom. "When are you coming back? We need to talk." The tone of the message was cold, almost distant. Not "I miss you," not "How are you?" and Ethan. Just "We need to talk." She stared at the screen for a long time. Ethan ran up to her, holding a seashell. "Look, Mom, it's shaped like a heart." She smiled faintly. "It's beautiful." But her heart wasn't calm anymore. Tom's message brought back all the heaviness she had tried to leave behind. The empty dinners, the quiet arguments, the long nights pretending to sleep beside someone who had already emotionally left. That night she put Ethan to bed early. He fell asleep quickly, clutching his seashell like a treasure. Melissa sat by the window again, staring at her phone. For some reason, she found herself typing a message to Liam. "Do you ever feel like your life became something you never planned?" He replied within minutes, all the time. "I think that's why we remember the people who made us feel alive. They remind us who we were before we started pretending." Melissa read the words 3 times. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. It wasn't romantic, it was real. It was the truth she'd been avoiding for years. She typed back, "I don't know who I am anymore." Liam's answer came softly. "Then start finding her again, Mel. The world needs her. So does Ethan." She set the phone down, her heart trembling. For the first time, she admitted to herself that her marriage wasn't broken, it was gone. What remained was a quiet shell of what used to be. The next morning, she and Ethan had breakfast downstairs. The hotel owner smiled warmly at them. "Heading out today?" she asked. "Not yet," Melissa said. "One more day." Ethan was unusually quiet, pushing his pancakes around the plate. "Mom," he said finally, "are you and Dad okay?" Melissa took a deep breath. "We're just figuring things out, honey." He nodded, still thoughtful. "You should tell him how you feel." "You always tell me that when I'm sad." His innocence struck her heart like lightning. Children had a way of saying the truth simply. She smiled weakly. "You're right. Maybe I should." Later, they walked along the pier. Boats rocked gently on the water, and the sound of seagulls echoed above. Ethan ran ahead to look at the fishermen cleaning their nets. Melissa sat on a bench, watching him. Her phone buzzed again. It was another message from Liam. "You know, I'm really glad we started talking again. You always brought light into my life." Melissa's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't about romance. It was about connection, understanding, the rare comfort of being seen. She replied, "You brought me peace when I didn't even know I needed it." As soon as she hit send, guilt crept into her chest. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because the truth hurt. She had found more kindness in a few messages with Liam than she had in months of marriage. That night, when Ethan was brushing his teeth, she looked at her reflection in the mirror again. The woman staring back wasn't sad anymore. She looked awake, different. The lines on her face seemed softer. The heaviness in her shoulders was gone. Then she heard Ethan's voice behind her. "Mom?" She turned. "Yes, sweetheart." He looked serious, almost scared to speak. "I think the mirror shows what we're feeling inside. Yesterday, it looked sad. Today, it looks ... warm." Melissa knelt down and cupped his face. "You're a very smart boy. You know that?" He nodded. "I just want you to be happy again." She hugged him tightly. "I will be, I promise." Later that night, when Ethan was asleep, Melissa sat at the desk and wrote a message to Tom. She didn't want to fight. She wanted honesty. "Tom, I think we need to stop pretending everything's fine. We both know it's not. I'm not angry, I'm just tired. Maybe it's time we face the truth." She stared at the screen, hesitating before pressing send. Then, quietly, she did. Minutes later, Tom replied, "So, this is it." Melissa looked at the mirror again, her reflection calm and certain. "Maybe it is," she whispered. Her phone buzzed once more. Another message from Liam. "You'll be okay. Mel, sometimes endings are just the start of something honest." She smiled faintly and texted back, "Thank you, Liam, for reminding me to feel again." Then she turned off her phone, walked to the mirror and stared for a long time. The reflection no longer frightened her. It didn't look lonely. It looked real. The next morning, as sunlight flooded the room, Ethan woke up and looked at her. "You look different," he said. Melissa smiled gently. "Maybe I finally saw what I needed to see." Ethan climbed into her lap, hugging her. "Does that mean you're happy again?" She kissed his forehead. "I think it means I'm ready to be." Outside, the sea breeze swept through the window, filling the room with a scent of salt and hope. The mirror caught the light, reflecting not sadness, but peace. Melissa didn't know what the future would hold with Tom, with Liam, or even on her own, but she finally understood something simple and powerful. Healing doesn't always come from love. Sometimes it comes from truth. That day, as they packed their bags, Ethan looked one last time at the mirror and said quietly, "It looks lighter now, Mom." She nodded, smiling. "That's because we are." And with that, they left the room together, ready for whatever came next. The night before they were supposed to leave, the wind howled outside the hotel windows. Melissa couldn't sleep. The waves crashed endlessly against the shore. And the sound of the old ceiling fan filled the room with a slow, steady hum. Ethan was sleeping peacefully, his small hand clutching the heart-shaped seashell he'd found earlier that day. Melissa watched him for a long moment, her heart full but uncertain. She knew everything was about to change. She just didn't know how. She got up quietly and walked toward the mirror. The one that had somehow become the center of everything that had happened that weekend. The lamp's warm light reflected her image clearly. For the first time, she didn't see a stranger staring back. She saw herself tired, yes, but strong. A woman who had faced years of silence and sadness and was finally beginning to see her own worth again. She whispered, "Who are you now?" Her reflection seemed to answer with calm eyes and a faint smile. She thought about Tom, about the years they'd shared, some beautiful, some painful. She thought about Liam, whose simple words had given her courage. And then she thought about Ethan, the one constant light that had never left her. For years she had lived for others, forgetting she deserved love. To dot just then, she heard a small voice behind her. "Mom!" Melissa turned. Ethan was awake, sitting on his bed with sleepy eyes and messy hair. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly. "Couldn't sleep?" He shook his head and looked toward the mirror. "Mom," he said quietly, "I know why I saw someone in the mirror before." Melissa froze. "What do you mean?" Ethan got up and walked to her side. His reflection stood next to hers, the two of them framed by the soft glow of the lamp. "It wasn't a ghost," he said, his voice gentle. "It was you, me?" she asked, confused. "The you that wasn't sad anymore," he said simply. "The mirror was showing what you forgot to see. I think it just wanted you to find her again." Melissa's eyes filled with tears. She knelt down and hugged him tightly, her hands trembling. "Oh, Ethan," she whispered. "You're too wise for your age," he smiled, resting his small head on her shoulder. "I just want you to be happy, Mom. I miss your real smile." Her tears fell quietly, not from pain this time, but from relief. For so long she had been holding everything inside, pretending to be fine, pretending the distance in her marriage didn't hurt, pretending she didn't miss the woman she used to be. And now her own son had said the words that unlocked everything. "Thank you, sweetheart," she said softly. "You don't know how much that means." The next morning, the air felt lighter. The storm had passed, leaving behind a bright sky and the smell of rain-soaked earth. Melissa packed their bags while Ethan hummed to himself, drawing in his sketchbook one last time. She looked around the room, the soft sheets, the yellow curtains, the mirror that had watched them both. It felt almost alive, like a quiet witness to her awakening. When she zipped up the last bag, Ethan walked over to her, holding his sketchbook open. "Look, Mom, this is us." The drawing showed two figures standing by the ocean. One was smaller, holding a seashell. The other had long hair blowing in the wind, smiling, not the tired, forced smile of old photos, but a real one. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice breaking a little. He nodded proudly. "It's how you look now." They checked out of the hotel and walked to the car. The hotel manager waved goodbye. "Hope you had a good stay," she said kindly. Melissa smiled. "More than good. Thank you." The drive back home was quiet but peaceful. The trees looked greener, the sky brighter. Ethan fell asleep in the back seat, and Melissa let her thoughts wander. She thought about calling Tom, not to argue, but to finally be honest. They had both drifted apart quietly, without blame, without cruelty. Maybe it was time to let go with the same quiet honesty. When she got home, Tom was waiting. He stood by the doorway, looking unsure. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she replied, her voice calm. For a few moments they just looked at each other. The silence between them wasn't angry anymore. It was tired but peaceful. "I got your message," he said. "You're right. We've been pretending. I don't even know when we stopped being ... us." Melissa nodded. "Neither do I, but we did." Tom looked down. "Do you hate me?" She shook her head. "No, Tom, I don't. I just can't keep living like this. We both deserve to feel alive again, don't we?" He sighed and gave a small, sad smile. "Yeah, I guess we do." It wasn't dramatic. There were no loud arguments, no broken promises. Just two people finally accepting the truth with quiet grace. That night, after putting Ethan to bed, Melissa sat by her window, watching the moonlight reflect on the glass. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "I hope you're okay, Mel," she typed back. "I think I am." For the first time in a long time, his reply came quickly. "Then, I'm glad. You deserve peace." She smiled and put the phone down. For once, she didn't need anyone else to tell her she was strong. She already knew it. The next morning, she took Ethan to the park. He ran ahead, chasing leaves in the wind. The sun was bright, the air crisp. Melissa watched him laugh, truly laugh.